How is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. I am Tanya E. Hood, a wife, a mother, and an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur simply means I've worn a lot of different hats in my life that have helped me develop a full range of strategies and actionable steps that I've used to help my clients make a strategic impact, both personally and professionally, to have better than what life has been giving them. Red Alert Diaries is based on the life lessons from my premier book, Red Alert, Is He the One? The pocket guide defining the love of your life. And if you read my book, you already know that I got married at 21. And after 11 years of marriage, I found myself going through a divorce, having to raise my two sons alone. To reset my life and survive my divorce, I took the time I needed to get to know me better, which allowed me to find new love again. So I'm in a new marriage with the love of my life and my best friend, which just proves there is life after divorce. On this podcast, we have discussions about real talk. And today we have a special guest joining us. So if you want to leave your comments, questions, or thoughts, you can call 240-532-2227. That's 240-532-2227. Because Miss Helynn Boughner joins us today. Hi, Helynn. How are you?
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Glad that you are here joining us today. So before we begin, I have got to introduce you to everyone because Helynn is also a co-author of our #1 Amazon bestseller in 8 categories and internationally. Our book is titled Your Voice Matters. This book was a collaboration of love, healing, and an expression to let those know that the voices that have been marginalized can actually be heard. You see, in the United States, the death of George Floyd exposed a trauma that has been felt by so many Black people in this country for years. And there's been so many individuals like Helynn that have made it be known that this was not an isolated incident. So she's joining us today to give us a little bit of idea about what she wrote. But in addition to being an international best-selling author, Helynn is also an international real estate consultant and corporate trainer. She is a dynamic trailblazer committed to self-development and unapologetically building a life by design. She also quips that her first on-the-job training as a team leader came from her roles as a wife and a mother of 2. And in the past 17 years, she has worked as a licensed associate real estate broker, assisting hundreds of clients from around the world with their real estate and relocation needs. So Helynn, thank you so much for joining me. And I know that you felt that you had to share the information associated with what was going on with the book. Can you just give us a snippet of what that looks like so those that get the book can get an idea of what your piece is about?
Well, I'll give you a snippet on the background and how my piece evolved, right? So basically, during the time, the book was birthed during the whole George Floyd incident. And that was just a very dark time, I know for everyone. But for me personally, it stirred up a lot of trauma, racism, grief, and loss, the time of being in quarantine. It was just a very dark time. And during that time, one of my cousins actually sent me a picture of myself as a child. It was from one of my dance recitals. And he just sent it out of the blue, and he didn't know how it hit me at that particular time because I was feeling very down, very, very discouraged, helpless. Like, what do I do? Figuring out so many different things. And when he sent me that picture, it just shook something in me. And it made me think of my childhood. And, and I said, wait a minute, you're not helpless. You pull it together, remember who you are and remember whose you are, right? So that's how the whole story evolves. So it's honoring the inner girl within me. That's my piece.
Well, that is good because too often we fail to honor who we are, which is how we get into so much mess. I know for me personally, because I forgot who I was at the core of my being, my divorce left me in chaos. And so when I was going through that experience as well, and the call came out to share, I was like, there's so many different levels that we can share. But the
Exactly.
impact that I had to deal with the most was, how is this going to affect my babies?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that was something that really hit me because I remember when I was a child, we didn't have social media. We didn't have the images that played constantly over and over and over that these young children have. Social media, cell phones. We were allowed to have a little more of our innocence for much longer than they are. So it made me very sad. And I said, what can we do to empower the next generation, right? So that was the mindset I was in. So when I got the call to be a part of this book project, I said, definitely, I want to be a part of this project for the next generation and to have this as part of my legacy. So that was the first part, but it was so many different layers to this book that, I know that this is divine intervention.
I understand. So what was your thought about the impact that this was going to make?
Well, I wanted to inspire people because I know I was feeling, like I said, very disillusioned, very discouraged at this particular time in history, right? So I wanted to let people know, to pull on the inner strength that we all have inside of us. But sometimes we just need a reminder. Sometimes we just need someone to say, okay, you have the power within. And regardless of what's going on around you, don't let anyone dim that light that's inside of you that we were all born with, and that's really where my piece, how it evolved. And that's what I wanted the next generation to never lose sight of, regardless of what's going on, regardless of what labels that anyone may put on you. Remember who you really are and remain true.
I am so glad you said that, because knowing that that is inspiring you, that passion that you have, when you walk through this, because you have 2 kids, what was your conversation with them that let them know still at the core of who you are, regardless of how this country or anyone else would try to make you believe? What is it you wanted them to know? What else were you trying to get them to share? Because I'm hearing your passion and your inspiration, but I know it starts at home.
It starts at home. Well, it started with my family growing up, right? So my grandmother, she was a Depression era baby, right? So she saw so many different things and so much that she had to deal with, hardship and struggle. She never allowed that to affect her life, right? She was a very, very fervent, prayerful woman, right? So she always prayed fervently. She kept the family together, loved us unconditionally, and she could make even the saddest situations happy, right? So that's something that I always carry with me in my heart. And it was a promise of mine to write a book, right? It's to become an author when she was alive. And when the book was written, it was 10 years. It marked 10 years since she passed. So it was one thing that I wanted to do to honor her and to pay tribute to her in some small way, because she had such an impact in my life. But as far as my children go, I always have conversations. And that was one thing that she always ingrained that into us, that you should always talk to your people, while you can, because there'll be one day that you won't be able to. And for children, you have to share the stories and you have to continue to talk to them. So that's one thing that I carry with me. And I wanted them to know, to never lose sight, like I said, of who they are, regardless of what's going on around them. And I have 2 children. Yeah, I have a son and a daughter. So the conversation is very much the same, but it's 2 different things. I want to raise that strong woman and also the strong man, right? But my son, because he is growing up as a man child, right? So I really wanted him to know that this conversation, I wanted to know what he was thinking. What is his feeling, right? Or what is his views on the world and on racism? And how could we make this a more positive environment for him? Because he's the youngest.
Sometimes, if this is legacy, so hearing your grandmother passing on the insight, the knowledge, and the wherewithal, so that you can give legacy to your children as well. Oh, I am so empowered by hearing your thoughts. How do you have that conversation? Because here's some of the things that we're having. So today's conversation, we're talking a little bit more about parenting. We're going to take a deeper dive into some things, because some people in our audience got to get some insight about how to have this conversation. Because even though that incident for some individuals, they feel is so far away, Legacy still transitions in any environment. And hearing your grandmother give you that transition and you making the same conversation for yours, can you give us an idea about how to pass on knowledgeable insight about the legacy of who you are so that no matter what's happening in the world around you, you are empowered to step forward?
Well, definitely never stop sharing your story, your family story, your history. Never let that go. And all of your ancestors, all your family members who have passed, I really believe in celebrating them. They, even though they leave here in the physical form, you continue to have them to live on by celebrating them each day in the stories that they shared and the legacy that they left behind. You're living that legacy, and that's something that I encourage all the time. All of the family members that we have lost, they left a piece of their selves behind in us, and we have to continue to keep them their life and their legacy alive each day. So that's one part of it. And also it's ironic because through this whole process, one of my past clients, who's also an author in this book, Cherie Gaskins, we decided before the project even came about that we wanted to start a virtual book club for our sons. So our sons they were at that time 8 and 9 when we decided to do this in 2020, and just hear their conversation about what their thoughts are, to keep their imagination going, to see, have them see characters, because representation is everything, that look like them, right, in their books. And another thing that was very important, my son happens to be a dyslexic, right? He suffers from dyslexia. And one thing that I wanted, because his progress throughout this whole pandemic has been amazing, the work that he's been putting in and how he's progressed with his reading, I've been so proud of him. So this book club has also added to that, because he's had a chance to be with his peers and to read for enjoyment and just have so much fun doing that. So it was a win-win all the way around.
So you just mentioned a couple of different things. One, I have dyslexia as well. So it is a struggle to try to see, but the encouragement is what helped me as well. So constantly having a reading take place and to start a virtual book club for boys, that is awesome. But you just said something else. She was a client. Tell us some more about how you're blending your business and your parenting, and how did you get to be so close to your client that way?
Oh my goodness. Well, 10 years ago, I sold her a house. She was a first-time homeowner, and we just became friends. We throughout the whole process, we stayed in connection, and our friendship developed over the years. So here we are 10 years later, and our sons, we try to keep them together and to see each other. And even though we're now in two different places around the world, we were able to virtually stay connected, through the whole pandemic. And they were a great support for each other. So it was wonderful.
I'm glad to hear that part. So let me ask you this next question, because hearing this, how did you even get into the thought process? What was the catalyst that helped you decide that I'm going to do real estate? What was that thought process? Where did you begin?
Ooh, that could take a whole other podcast.
You have to come back, then you have to come back.
So it was a series of events, actually, Tanya. And the first thing, ever since, I'd say throughout my 20s, I was just not happy with any of my jobs that I had. I said, there's got to be more. I was looking for more. I was looking to be fulfilled. I was like, wow, I worked so hard to get out of college. I thought that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and this was not it. So that was the first thing. Then came September 11th. And that was a wake-up call to me, that I felt like I was not really living. I was just existing. And it was just a definite wake-up call. And I felt like this is the time that I really have to find my purpose. And the third thing that happened was I actually used to go to work with one of my friends. We used to commute together to work. And I was so miserable because our company merged and it was taken over, and I was doing 3 different jobs with one role and the same paycheck, right? And I was so miserable. And I actually turned to her and said, Cheryl, if I could not go to this job, I would give anything to just not go here because I'm so miserable. And that day when we got into work, as soon as we turned on our computer, they said, we're doing some corporate restructuring. And by 5 o'clock today, 11% of the workforce we're going to let go. So I was like, well, be careful what you say and you put out there in existence. And I actually happen to be one of the 11% that they let go. So that was the first thing. And then, my husband and I waited. We purposely waited. We said we would plan our family after 5 years of being married and spending time together and, just focusing on us. And it was like, I lost my job, then surprise, I was pregnant. So it was like, wow, this is not how we planned it. This is not how we planned it. And that was my time to reinvent myself and to think, okay, now what do I really want to do? And what would make me happy? And that's how I ended up.
So that is often how things happen. So life hit. Life hit you with an unplanned thought process. Life hit you with the losing of your job. Is that how you came up with the thought process that you would be unapologetic about designing and building a life that you want? Tell us how you can help other women that are going through like, okay, this is not expected, but how am I going to get through it? Is there some actionable step that you can give the audience that they can use to get an idea about, okay, that's one thing that I can do to get to this phase, because you've got the story. How'd you get the answer to walk through the process?
Well, I think the first most important thing is to give yourself permission to do so. So a lot of times, we just feel like we have to stay stuck in a situation that, the paycheck is there. It's, we talk ourselves into, it's a good job. It'll do, it's serving its purpose, but it's not making us happy. And there's a big void in our life. And I think if we first give ourselves permission to explore what else is out there, what else, can we utilize our skills and talents for, that maybe the higher and best purpose for what we were born to do. I think the first thing is to definitely give ourselves permission.
I'm glad that you said it, because too often we don't give ourselves permission to do the things that we really know could be true and valid for us, which leads me to this other thought. You as a mother, because it's one of the things we must do, we have to be the force to give our children the insight so that they can be their best and highest self as well. So I want to go back to a conversation that you just shared about your son. You were giving him a space and a place. In this environment, people are talking about how they have to do all the virtual homeschooling and training and how that works. With a child that has a learning disability, he still excelled. Can you give some insight about how you helped him specifically? Because if you can get him to excel and grow in this environment virtually, others can get this as well. What did you do? How did that work?
It was not easy. I will tell you that, Tanya, because as you know, we were all trying to figure it out in this whole process, because it was just boom, we're now, this is our new normal, and here we are, and it's virtual. And it just took a lot of patience and understanding, because I know he had challenges. I tried to make it fun. It became a family affair that we all had to jump in and take turns and help him through that process, because just to let him know he's supported. We see him and we know we all have our own challenges. His just happens to be a reading challenge, but we each have, no matter how old you get, there's always going to be something that you struggle with. So that was the first thing that we had to do. And he just was so proud of himself when everything was over, that he's, to hear him read now, I am so, so proud of him. And he enjoys it, which is more. He went from avoiding reading because it was such a stressful thing for him to helping him to love reading. And we also had some great mentors along the way to give him extra support as well, which was amazing. And I'm so grateful for that.
I'm glad because it still takes a village to support. But I know that you indicated at one point before that you have a unique ability and a gift of tapping into hidden skills of others. Is that where you took the time to see, well, what does my son need? Where is his special gift? Where's a special gift? How do you do that? What is it that you do to help others so they can get an idea?
Well, okay. Well, I do have a background also in education, so I should mention that as well, that I do have my master's in education. But it's always been something, even from a child, that I look past or read between the lines of what a person actually is bringing to the table. And I can see, okay, this person, this is what they're good at. This is their talents, and this is what we should really push and elevate. So that became just a passion of mine. And I've spoken to so many people in transition of career, because I know what that's like and how painful it is to be in a place where you're not happy and want to get to another place, and identify what is that other place and what does that look like for me. So I love talking and meeting new people. And if we can, through that conversation and through our consultation together, figure out what would be their next. And I love to do that. And that's what I've been successful at doing with so many people. And it brings me joy.
So I'm glad you shared that because you are also offering a special giveaway for our audience. Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, so I am offering a 30-minute consultation. If you have decided you need to transition out of your space or your career, we can have our 30-minute complimentary consultation, and I am working to get you to your next.
Indeed. So let me ask you, because we are wrapping up. I thank you so much for being here. Are there any last thoughts that you want to give our audience today?
The last thoughts, I would just say, don't ever stop dreaming big. Give yourself permission to continue to dream big, no matter how old you get, no matter what challenges life throws your way. Just know that you should always continue to dream big. And even no matter how long it takes, if it means enough to you, if your why is big enough, you will continue to push forward and get there. Don't listen to anyone discourage you. Don't, listen to yourself and your limits and beliefs. Just listen to your heart and continue to dream big until you get to where you want to be.
Thank you so much. Well, Helynn, I am so glad that you joined us today, because hearing your heart to serve, your desire to help, and letting the unique ability that you have to help others see how to get that hidden skill revealed. We need to have this. So everyone, you already heard, Helynn is available for that consultation. Just go to her website, helynboughner.com. Reach out to her there so you can also get the other information that she has to share about being an international real estate consultant, relocation specialist, or career strategist. Thank you, Helynn. I truly appreciate you being here. And for those of you that are joining us today, we are going to have a conversation continue on Clubhouse. So if you're available on Clubhouse, meet me there so we can continue this discussion. We start off at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a discussion on mindset. And then we migrate to the next conversation here with Red Alert Diaries at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and wrapping it all up with a conversation about the village woman. I encourage you to join us. And if you don't remember anything else that was shared with you today, I want you to know that inside of your soul, you have the ability to make the changes that you need. Don't forget your inner child, because you still need to know that you are special to those in the world. And with that, I will see you next time. Join me on TanyaEhood.com so we can finish the conversation, have some other collaborative discussions. And in the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.